Hi everyone, welcome back to Farrand Film. Today we are bringing you another top 10. We are bringing you our top 10 critical darlings that you just don't get. Now, basically, what we mean by this is those films that do really well at the Oscars or everybody else loves, and you just don't get them. Now, it's not just films that did well at the Oscars. These don't have to be Oscar winners to have sort of appeared on a list. It can be those films that general consensus opinion is that's a good film, and you look at it and you just go, I really don't get that. I really don't understand why it is. We've all just spoken briefly about how this podcast is essentially just going to be arguments for a bit.
This is going to be a war zone, people.
So strap in, people, because there are definitely some on my list that I know are going to really irk some people, including my number 10. So we're going to start off really well. I have seen Holly's list because just in the event that Jamie takes over, I will replace Holly. But I've said there are some that Holly, you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to step in because, yeah. So we're just gonna, well, actually, honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions, I should say, because I've got 4. So I'll start with the one that I don't think you've probably heard of. It's called Stories We Tell. Now, off the top of my head, it won the Oscar for Best Documentary. But it's on the A-level spec for film studies, and a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people are saying it's an amazing documentary. So I thought, you know what, I'll paid for it on iTunes, watched it. What's the point? Like it just, and this might be me not reading into it too much, but it just seems like it's a story about a girl who met her estranged dad again, and I was just like, great, yeah, whatever. One that I've mentioned on the podcast, the original Blade Runner. Just don't see it. You know, I love 2049. That one, not a fan of. 1927, I believe. Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Nah, not a fan. Not a fan. Not getting those 3 hours back of my life that I wasted in the lecture theatre watching that. And then one that I don't know if this is a general consensus one. Life of Pi. I just don't get Life of Pi. Like, it's a guy in a boat with his tiger.
The stage, I didn't like the film, but the stage show is really good.
Oh, is it?
I went to the cinema to see the stage show.
Ah, right, okay.
The filmed version.
Is it similar vibe to when they did Warhorse at the National Theatre and they had like an animatronic?
Exactly the same vibe. There's a orangutan puppet, which is just mind-blowing how beautiful this puppet is.
That I could see being really good.
The tiger puppet is incredible. Yeah.
Nice.
I remember going behind the scenes to see like different stages of the horse being made when Warhorse was there. And it's just the things that, you know, like when you see like JML products and you're like, oh my God, that's a problem I didn't know existed and you've solved it. Like every single stage of this horse, like was just, yeah, I didn't think you'd have to consider that for an animatronic horse, but there we are. That's really goddamn clever.
Holly, have you got any?
Not really, but just a shout out because when we talked about films, the $1 billion grossing films, I said I hate all the Harry Potter films. Like some of them are critically acclaimed, some of them are just very, very popular and people love them. They hit me at the exact wrong age. I love the books, and I think I'm right in saying the first Harry Potter film came out at the same year as the 5th Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
And I hated both. I think I just hit like 15 or something like that, and it had run its course for me. And so after that, I just hated all the films. I absolutely despise the acting of the child actors, even though I now really like them as that, particularly Daniel Radcliffe. He's
really found his niche, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does all sorts of bizarre, weird films, and he's really funny and good in them. But oh my God, I just find it so cringeworthy watching him as Harry Potter, and I'm sorry, mate, you were only young, so it's not your fault. But I can't watch him. Hate him.
Ollie?
Funnily enough, I'm the same. Like the way I've worded this is, I feel like I should love the Harry Potter films because I did love the books, and I just never fell in with the films that much. Like they're good. You know, I know that Georgia wants to do like a binge of them all, and it's not that I'm dreading that or anything like that, but it's one of them. Like once I've binged them, I could genuinely quite happily be like, I'll never watch these again and probably be fine. But I don't hate them. It's just I don't love them as much as I feel I should. Another one that Holly reminded me of in the previous episode, funnily enough, and I'm going to see some jaws drop. One that I have never understood the hype around, Mary Poppins.
Yeah, okay.
I've never quite got the hype around Mary Poppins. Julie Andrews is great in it. I love the actor who plays Mr. Banks, who's in Bedknobs and Broomsticks as well. I feel like I don't know his name, but it's just weird. I can't get over Dick Van Dyke's accent as well. I love the man. I love him with all my heart. He is a treasure, but why is he trying to be Cockney? Just no. But yeah, that's it really. The Harry Potter franchise and I nearly put Mary Poppins onto my list, but what I've got in my number 10 is kind of similar to Harry Potter. Except Harry Potter, I think I just got a little bit fatigued with, and then Mary Poppins is like one film.
Yeah.
So I've kind of cheated with my number 10, but we'll get to that.
Gemma?
You muted,
She's
Gemma.
on mute again. 2020 all over again.
Okay. Oliver, you mute yourself right now. Mute yourself right now. Okay.
I'll be good.
Any Star Wars.
No, I get it. I get it. I genuinely do. I get it.
Because I don't, right? I just don't get it. I don't like that kind of stuff. I know that people love it, right? I would rather poo in my hands and clap than watch a film, a Star Wars film. I really would.
Have you met my baby?
Vanilla Sky. People went mad for that. I just thought it was pants. Unbreakable. It was out ages ago.
Ciao.
I just I don't know. It went on too long. It was too long. It was half an hour too long.
Yeah.
Detroit, I had to turn it off because it made me feel sick. That shaky camera thing that people love, they did it all the way through Macbeth as well, made me feel seasick. And I just thought it was slow and I didn't like it and we turned it off. And Life of Pi as well. So Life of Pi, again, just meh.
Yeah.
It's just meh, isn't it? And so these things, like for me, I think one of the reasons why we're doing this is because I always talk about sort of films that everyone goes mad about, but I'm just like, I just don't get it. It's not that things are bad films necessarily that are on my list. It's just things that everybody raved about that left me kind of cold. Some of them I think are terrible films on my list. Some are terrible films. But some of the ones are just things that some people just went mental about. And I went, what was all that about? What was it?
You got like a divide in your list where that's the case? Because I genuinely think it's half and half. Like I
wouldn't say it's numerically a divide, but I would say there's some things that I'm not saying terrible, I just didn't like them. There are some things that are terrible. And I'll tell you which ones are which as we go through.
I think mine's quite nicely ended up half and half. I think the bottom five that like we're going to talk about in this first half, I understand why they are critically acclaimed films. They just like you worded it really well, actually. They just left me a bit cold. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Whereas the top five are just like, no, do not like at all. Don't get why you would like it. Shove off.
Yeah. I feel there's going to be so many grenades thrown in this episode.
Oh
God.
I'm looking forward to it. Come on.
I'm going to preface this with usually when we do a top 10, I usually get something for each film. So I figure out like, the year of release, or usually it might be like things that I've tweeted about it or Wikipedia reviews or whatever it is. I've done nothing for this. Yeah. This is just a case of these are the films. I'm going to tell you the name of it and I'm going to tell you why I don't like it.
Ironically, I've done a little bit more because I remember like you guys had like fully gone for like, I've not got the data in front of me, but like last time you guys were quoting Rotten Tomatoes scores and IMDb scores, and I was just vibing. And there was a bit of controversy around Face Off because I stand by the idea that it is a bad film, but people love it. And yes, the general zeitgeist is that everybody loves it, but it is a bad film. However, I do accept it does dampen the argument when it is as well received as it is. Georgia made sure for this one that we went through all of these and made sure that they were critically well received. Yes. And every single one of them is at least like quite comfortably fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Everything's above like a 3.5 on IMDb. So yeah, I'm confident that I've got critical darlings here.
Good. Holly, you're going to start us off with your number 10.
Okie dokie. My number 10 is my least favorite Coen Brothers film. There are loads of Coen Brothers films I really like, but they do deal a lot in like parables and things like that. And I'm not into that. I like a narrative that makes sense to me, that I don't then have to do research on afterwards to work out that it was some kind of I don't know, like a metaphorical version of a Bible story or something.
You're an English teacher.
Narrative is extremely important. You can then find that there are metaphors in the narrative that mean something to you, but I need a storyline. So the film is A Serious Man. It's from 2009, certified fresh, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people were writing, oh, it's the Coen brothers' best film. And one of the reviews said, A Serious Man is curious as a narrative, but wholly momentous as a parable. And I think curious as a narrative is wanky film critics speak for rubbish. Boring. I went on the Wikipedia page to get a plot review, a plot summary, and the plot summary is like 17 paragraphs long because it's just listing everything that happens in the film, because there is no plot. There's just this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, then it's this, then it's this, then they die at the end. And I understand that if you are Jewish or if you're a scholar of religion, you might see the parable straight away because it is something to do with being Jewish in America and living in the suburbs at that time. And also there's like a flashback to a Jewish family living in the ghettos. There's something there that I don't have that cultural background, and I just didn't understand it and couldn't enjoy it as a story on its face either. So it's perfectly possible that if you understand the story it's based on, it's an interesting metaphor for that story, but it just didn't feel like it had a plot. And it has Michael Stuhlbarg, who is a fantastic actor in it. And even then, it was unwatchable to me. I just was so boring.
Yeah,
The
it
way
everyone dies in a hurricane at the end, and I was like,
yeah,
cool.
Too right.
So it's a weirdly common problem in like musicals as well. Like Jesus Christ Superstar tends to sit a lot better with people who kind of already know that story anyway, because a lot of it is sung, they can't get the story across, so you kind of sat there going, what? I think Rent has a similar problem. Like, if you know the story of Rent and you're fine with it, you can go into any production of it and be like, oh, that's really good. But it's that homework you've almost got to do beforehand, which can ruin it. Yeah.
I struggled with American Idiot.
Yeah,
it's just relentless.
That doesn't even try to have plot.
Yeah,
American
and me and Amy were both like, "What's happening?
I went to see one of my mates in it, and luckily he knew, so he like warned me. It was like, there is plot in this, but I'll just tell you what it is because it's that threadbare. It's not exactly spoilers.
Yeah.
If you're gonna come, you should just come and enjoy the Green Day songs and the presentation of it. Like that's what it was there for. Because if you went into that looking for a story, like a jukebox musical about Green Day, you'd be bitterly disappointed.
Yeah. It's not Billy Joel waking up one day and going, I'm going to make a band. Yeah. Oliver, number 10.
So we're firmly into, like I said, things I recognize are objectively good. I am, for whatever reason, really cold on them. And this one actually confuses me because I sit down, I have watched most of them, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the acting, I've enjoyed the world building, I've enjoyed the story. I've enjoyed the presentation, everything about it, but it just doesn't click in a way that I feel it should. And it's the Hunger Games franchise as a whole. Like, they are good films. I can sit down and be like, yeah, this is good. But it just leaves me feeling a bit meh. It's a really weird sensation. And that's why it's so low down. Because I absolutely get why people went mad over this. And I absolutely get why they are as popular as they are. I love all the actors in here. Like I said, I love objectively, I like everything about it, but it just subjectively, I feel like I should like really love these films, and I just don't. And it just feels like a shame. It feels like something is missing in there, and I couldn't tell you what it is.
Yeah. I mean,
You know what I mean?
I really like the first two. I
Mm,
think the third one is a massive flop. The second one tries to do things to sort of damage control from the last one.
mm,
I like I said this when we did that sequels one. I think Catching Fire for a sequel is one of the
mm.
best sequels because it builds on everything that came before it and all that
It
kind of
ups the
stuff.
stage,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it is clever in the like the imagination behind some of the ways that, you know, those weird birds that like scream in the voice of like people
Yeah.
that you're familiar with to try. That's horrific psychological torture. I'm down for stuff like that. It's really clever. All the world building stuff is really clever, and it's just. But I have no desire to see anything else. Like
Mm.
if they announced that they were doing like a prequel series to it, I'd be like,
There was a prequel film coming out this year.
yeah, it's about
Yeah.
snow, isn't it? And I just
Yeah.
and I feel like I should be invested because it should be really interesting.
Yeah.
But something about it just doesn't click for me, and it feels like a shame.
I'm exactly the same. I'm not mad at that take. I liked the books, but I didn't love them. And there are a couple of other books, things like Battle Royale, which are very similar storylines, but have more like you have more sympathy for all the children involved. They're all children. That's horrendous. And in the Hunger Games, they like kill most of them like off screen, and you don't feel anything about it. And that's like a really wasted opportunity.
Battle Royale is a lot more visceral. And it's a lot, I love as well in that it's a lot more confusing as to why they're actually there. They don't really adequately explain it, which I quite like. And I also worry that this film kind of gets tarnished by all of the like genuinely bad young adult stuff, you know, like the Divergent series, like Maze Runner, you know, stuff like that that really tried to copy off of the back of it.
Yeah.
Whereas this was quite good. Like this was a bit of a trend. This was a trendsetter, and I think it deserves the praise it gets. I just maybe it caught me at slightly the wrong time.
Yeah, maybe
I was a bit too old for it. I don't know, but
so I'm going to preface my number 10 with this was one of the films that when we started the podcast, people were like, "Oh my god, how have you not seen that film? You need to go and watch that film." And it's also one of the reasons why I'm really hesitant to actually go and watch The Godfather, because what I find with things like this is that when you actually sit down and watch it and everyone's like ramped it up, it's never as good as what it actually ends up being. So I'm taking the pin off my first grenade. I'm throwing it in, and I apologize to Gemma. My number 10 is Stand By Me. I sat and I watched it, and I just thought, this is just boys walking up and down the train track, and there's nothing happening here. There's nothing going on here.
Get out.
I thought I'm so bored watching this film.
I am the first one to kick off.
I
thought Oliver would be the first one to kick off, but I'm going to be the first one to kick off. Are you off your head? Have you
genuinely
your mind? I'm stripping you of your degree. Is your degree in film studies? Right, well that's gone. Okay, so I'm writing a letter to whatever university handed that one out to you. Right, okay, I'm going to speak to the head. You're no longer head of film studies. Okay, and I'm going to speak to every podcast host provider, and this is going. You don't like Stand By Me? Are you mad?
Honestly, I watched it and I just thought, this is quite dull. This is quite plodding. It's not even a long film, but it felt long.
Oh my god!
Wow!
I had no interest in it whatsoever. I didn't really care about any of the kids.
Maybe you just watched it too old. I mean, it was like an 80s film, and we watched it when we were teenagers. It felt rebellious when we watched it. Like, I can remember me and my twin watching it going, oh my gosh, we're going to be in so much trouble for watching this.
Gemma, do you know what it is? You watched a proper coming of age story written by Stephen King with some grittiness in there and some like horror elements. And Adam's been raised on a full fat diet of John Hughes. Sugary, sweet,
You
sickliness.
shut your face.
Just, oh, isn't it lovely?
You know what? I'm a John Hughes fan. I'm a massive John Hughes fan. I'm an 80s kid. I'm a
right, but
huge
you've got the
John
edge
Hughes.
to your Hale. He doesn't.
I love a bit of John Hughes, but how you can say that Stand By Me is wow.
Because
I'm
again, similar
going.
to what we were saying before, I'm not saying that this is a bad film because I can look at it and I can go, I understand why people like it. But I think the one argument that keeps coming back around with these podcasts is some films just depend on when you see them. In that, like Goonies was dependent on when you saw it. Stand By Me was
Goonies.
Yeah.
Everyone
Stand By
says
Me
that.
was dependent on when you saw
I
it.
get the impression that if I did go and watch it now, that I would love it.
What's that?
The Goonies. I still haven't seen it.
Right.
And I do get the impression that if I ended this podcast and watched it now, I would actually just love Goonies. But
you know what? I showed Goonies to the kids on the last day because I wore a Goonies t-shirt on the last day of term. And some kids that were probably in year 8 said to me, "Oh, can we watch Goonies then?" And I said, "Yeah, let's put it on." So we put it on and they were roaring with laughter. They thought it was hilarious. Now, these are kids that are, Generation Y. They are way, way older than, the kind of fashions and the trends that were in Goonies. And they were solidly laughing. So I think if it hits kids at any age, like my nieces and nephews love it. I've said to my nieces, because they've both got children, so they're my great niece and nephew, I've told them they're not allowed to show the kids Goonies. I'm showing them Goonies. But I do think that, when you watch it as a kid, it kind of hits different.
Because Holly went back and did Home Alone recently and didn't like Home Alone. Or didn't quite get it, Yeah, so... so Gemma, what's your number 10?
Is it Dark Knight, Gemma?
No, Dark Knight hasn't made it on there because it's just not something, those kind of Batman films aren't something that I would watch expecting to like. So I wouldn't go into it thinking, everybody said that this is good, so I'm going to really like it. I know that isn't my kind of film, so I wouldn't go into it with any kind of hope. So this list is made up of things that I thought, everyone says this is great, it's going to be great. So my number 10 is La La Land, which everybody went mad for La La Land, didn't they, when it came out a few years ago? And it just what you get La La Land, or you get my take on it?
No, I get your take on it because I put La La Land in my top 10 musicals when we did that. I think it was round about number 7 or something like that.
Right.
But the first time me and Amy watched it afterwards, like it was the whole City of Stars thing, in that everyone was like, City of Stars is a fantastic song, and I was like, is that it? Is that it? And then like coming back out of it, and I was like, but like it's Damien Chazelle, the director, knowing exactly what to do, in that he's appealing to the Academy by going, look at this oldie film, look at this oldie musical film. You like musicals, don't you? You like this, and then there are things about it that I think
it was ever shown. You knew that it was going to clean up. For me, I just thought, wow, when you just said, is that it? It was absolutely it. Is that it? It's not a very deep plot. It's a really, really thin plot. I guess people loved it because it was all this kind of irony of, hey, we're making it in Hollywood and it's kind of a take on Hollywood. And it's
I'm going to talk about that a bit later, but yeah.
No, it didn't work for me. I didn't like it. I thought it was a thin plot, and I just thought at the end of it, I mean, I got to the end of it, so that says something. I didn't switch it off. I got to the end of it, but at the end of it, I think, do you know what? I spent the whole film waiting for it to get good, and it just didn't.
Yeah.
And so that's my take on La La Land. It just wasn't as good as everybody that absolutely raved about it thought it was going to be brilliant, and it wasn't.
Before we get into number 9s, are there any films on anyone's list that they didn't actually watch all of it?
No, I've seen all the way through all of mine.
I've got a lot that I switched off. Now, when we start a film, if we're not sure about it, we call it the 15-minute rule. So if we're like, should we watch it? Should we not? We say, let's give it the 15-minute rule. That is a really common Saturday night phrase in our house. Let's give it the 15-minute rule. Sometimes things go off after 15 minutes. We'll give it 15 minutes and we'll be like, okay, let's give it a bit longer. But there are a good few on my list that I just went, you know what? This is having no more of my life. I'm not giving any more of my life to this film. And I turned them off. I'll tell you which ones they are when I get to them.
You're brave of the bit. The only film I know that we've done that for from a quality standpoint is Turbo.
Yeah,
the DreamWorks film about a racing. Like we got to a
Is
point
the one
where
about the snail?
yeah, and they're just like they're in a Mexican takeaway truck has picked them up, and I think me and Georgia just looked at each other as like, are you watching this, or are you on your phone as well? You're on your phone as well. Should we just turn it off? I think that's genuinely the only film we haven't just sat through.
that whole year, La La Land, Moonlight, I think Nocturnal Animals was that year as well.
Oh my God, Nocturnal Animals is awful.
I turned them all off in like 15 minutes. I think it was just a time where I just couldn't be bothered with films I wasn't 100% into.
Yeah.
I will probably go back and try those films again. I think Moonlight's probably a good film. It was just too slow for me. But La La Land just went off. It was like the first song when the girls are like dancing about getting ready for a night out. It was just like, feeling this, boom.
Right, number 9's Ollie. Go on.
Okay, cover.
Here comes the grenade.
Best thing is I know I've got an ally in this.
Oh no.
Ollie's the ally.
It's usually Holly.
Home Alone.
You can stuff off. as if you put Home Alone in your list.
Of course I put it on there.
Right, Adam, let's go. Let's get him.
Come on.
Right.
So I wore my Wet Bandits t-shirt yesterday when we took Ruby to Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
You've lost your mind, son.
Just.
Now, again, this is firmly in the half of I get why people love this film. I really do. It is a good, fun Christmas film. If we were tier listing it, or if I was tier listing it, because if we were tier listing it, you'd be vetoing it before it was even a thing.
I wouldn't even say the title of it.
I'd probably be looking to put it in like a mid 2-1. It is a very good film. I'm like, yeah, it is this militant opinion that it is by far and away the best Christmas film ever, to the point where some people think that the second film is also worthy of such a distinction, right? And I know that Hale is going to get on a soapbox again if I try and bring up Die Hard in the conversation of a better Christmas film, even though that's just because she was there. She probably went to see. She's probably the only one of us that went to see it in cinemas when it came out.
She's not that old.
Excuse me. Just getting bullied over my wisdom, not age, wisdom here. Thank you. No, I didn't.
Even if I don't go there for the sake of Hale's sanity, Muppets Christmas Carol, Arthur Christmas. There's so many other Christmas films. Arthur Christmas is unbloody believable. It's unreal. It is such a good Christmas film. I'd much rather watch that.
But how can you say that Home Alone isn't?
I'm not saying it's bad. Again, I get it is a good film. I do enjoy it. This militant opinion that it is by far and away the greatest Christmas film that ever has been and ever will be. Don't buy it. I really there's so many other Christmas films I'd rather watch. By far.
It's like unequivocally, it is my favorite Christmas film. Like I make no bones about that at all, right? But I think there's a difference between. I don't think I'd tell you it was the best. Like I would in terms of like if one of the kids said to me, "So what's the best Christmas film?" I would say Home Alone because I'm saying my favorite, my choice, and my opinion. But then if we were going down the list of again, like we've mentioned before, that sort of this is the best. I don't know if I'd say it's the best because you'd look at something like It's a Wonderful Life, or something like that. But yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't watch that again is going into this thing of what other people say and what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
If you had to watch a Christmas film and someone said It's a Wonderful Life or Home Alone, which one should we watch? You watch Home Alone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
also, just want to say at this point, Oliver
is a tad overrated, and it has Jimmy Stewart attempting to act, and he has a horrible way of acting. And given that choice, fine. But given the choice of, like I said, Arthur Christmas, given the choice of Muppets Christmas Carol, given the choice of like Joyeux Noel, which is like the story of like soldiers in the trenches and stuff like that, I'd way rather watch that.
I'd pick Home Alone 2 over all of those.
Tokyo Godfathers, an anime about 3 homeless Japanese people finding a baby. I'd rather watch that. It's unbelievable. And it's just, Home Alone is fine. It really doesn't do it for me. And maybe I have just got this bugbear about Sickly Sweetness of John Hughes, but there's plenty of stuff in Home Alone that I do love. I love John Candy. I love all of the attempts that Joe Pesci has to make to not just drop F-bombs left, right, and center in a film that is ostensibly for kids. And I love all of the takes after. It's not so much the first one, to be fair. It's more the second one. Like, the number of times the pair of them should have died. It's hilarious. Like, when Marv is getting just brick after brick hurled at him. Yeah, it's funny. But, yeah, it's a good film. And, like, it's still very firmly in that list of, I get why it is good. I get why people love it so much. But it just really does not do it for me. It really doesn't.
Tell me now, is there a worse take in your list that I'm gonna take more umbrage to?
I reckon there is.
Okay.
Yeah, I reckon there is.
Okay.
Adam.
Yes.
Just when we're saying about taking umbrage, Oliver, Die Hard is rated 18, and it came out in 1988, which meant I was a decade too young to have seen it in the cinema. Thank you very much, son.
Hey.
Cheek of it.
My number 9. I don't know if this is going to actually bother anybody. It's the 1970s Superman. I don't like it at all. Like, the first time I watched it, because me and my mate used to do this when we worked at Cineworld on a Monday night after the last film would come out. We'd go in and we'd just watch something. So I saw it for the first time on a cinema screen, and I don't get that it's this sort of quintessential landmark in superhero films or comic book films, because like the whole flaw with Superman anyway is that if he puts a pair of glasses on, people all of a sudden don't think it's the same person. Like, that's just an issue left, right, and center. But then my biggest issue with the film is that he, to save Lois Lane, needs to turn back time. So he does it by flying the reverse way around the Earth so that the Earth goes backwards on its axis.
Surely he could just catch the missiles.
That wouldn't turn back time. That would just give you an extra 2 minutes. It wouldn't like reverse the time. That's not how it works.
It would kill everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone would go.
How is that what you've got a problem with? So you can lift up buildings, you can lift up that, but that
is my issue. I can buy into super strength and all that kind of stuff, but like, you're messing around with things that you don't understand now. Like, no, just I found it really boring.
So play devil's advocate though. Like, you champion Daredevil because at the time it was the best they could have done with that property, and I think that's a fair point on Daredevil. 2003, that is the best they could have. It was terrible, but that is the best they could have done. Do you not think, what was it, 1979?
I want to, either 77 or 79, but I might be getting
it's late 70s. I think that is the best they probably could have done, and it's probably the first time you've seen a superhero imagined quite that well in cinema. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're a bit numb to it because of the Marvel films, because of the good stuff that DC have done. We're so used to seeing a superhero imagined on screen as perfectly as we could.
Maybe, but I think my biggest sort of issue with it more recently, because I've only seen it the once, is how people, when they do something like a top 10 comic book films of all time, like,
it shouldn't be making anything like that.
No, it's like it's smattered with like recent stuff, and then all of a sudden number 1 and number 2 is the original Superman. It's like the originals can't be bested, and it's like they can be.
They really can.
Rubbish.
Man of Steel gets really overlooked, and I'm very annoyed about that.
There are some really good things about Man of Steel, but there are also some
really good things. I do think as well, to be fair, like you kind of made the joke about taking his glasses off. Christopher Reeve does a lot more than that. He acts completely different. He holds his hair in a completely different way. Like, it's similar, you know, like, and that maybe that's part of it, the idea that no one has managed to quite get Clark Kent and Superman, that dichotomy down quite as well. In the way that Kevin Conroy is probably one of the best at it for Batman. Like Christopher Reeve was this bumbling, oh, I'm so sorry kind of idiot for Clark Kent, and that's because that's what he wanted to portray. And then his Superman is this really cool, charismatic, calm, nice individual. Like,
yeah.
But I do get what you mean. Like, like the idea that it's on the top of anybody's superhero list is mad. It's really boring. It's such a boring film.
Gemma, number 9.
My number 9 is Brokeback Mountain. Which is it's not just a film that I didn't get, it's actually a film that I hate. I just think it is terrible. I could
Gemma hates gays.
Yeah, Gemma hates gays. No, do you know what? I could rant about this all day. Right, first thing, stop calling them cowboys. There's not a cow in the film. They're shepherds, right? There's not a cow in that film. They're shepherds. But that's just where I start. Okay, where do I start? Absolutely zero chemistry between the two of them. Zero chemistry whatsoever. There's no love. It's all physical. It makes out that gay sex is about an animalistic lust. They're either having sex or fighting. It's just completely physical. There's no love. There's no warmth. So I almost take it as actually a bit of a homophobic film. It's not an LGBT film. It's a homophobic film. Not because of the homophobia of some of the people within the film and their responses to them. It's homophobic to me because of its portrayal of, being gay is a result of the fact that they were cold one night and they just ended up in the tent together, as opposed to it being somebody's nature that somebody is born with. So that's homophobic. The toxic masculinity of the fact that, hey, we're going to make a film about gay cowboys, not cowboys, gay cowboys. Why can't a cowboy be gay? What are you trying to say? Why is that so weird? Why is that so unusual? What are we saying about this toxic masculinity that cowboys can't be gay? Of course they can. I think that it went on too long. The plot was quite thin, really. I don't think that a lot of the dialogue was particularly good. Sometimes I felt like there was large chunks of the story missing, like it had been cut. And then you just go, hang on, what's happening now? Where are we now? And it just feels like it's jumped.
That's very Ang Lee, to be fair. It looks very pretty, but it's like, what?
Right, so the looks very pretty is another bit about it. I think that there was a lot of things that were just gratuitously in there just because they looked good. There's a scene in it where I think it's 4th of July and he stood up and there's all these fireworks going off behind him. There's nothing really happening in the scene and there's no purpose for that, but cinematically it looks brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that film, it wouldn't be made maybe now the same way that it was. I don't think for me it just absolutely leaves me cold. I really don't like it. I do think that it's got a lot of negative things for LGBT people, particularly young people or people that are trying to find their identity, with basically just talking about how much hate you get if you're a man's man, and that you're going to be gay. I think it reinforces far too many stereotypes, and there's no chemistry in it. The plot is, I think, very thin, jumps around a lot, gratuitous, tried to be edgy, I think, by going with the whole gay cowboy thing, and I hate it. I think it's a terrible film. Really don't like it.
Sounds quite boring. Like, I've not seen it, but it sounds quite boring. And like, it's because I know, like, I nerd out over accents, and the guy whose videos I watch a lot, Eric Singer, he praises Jake and Heath in this for the way they do their accents. So I'd love to watch it from that standpoint, but it does just sound very boring. And it is a point as well. Like, it was probably really well intentioned at the time of like, oh, we're gonna make this story about gay people. And at the time, it was meant to be this ally-ish film, and then you look back on it years later, and it's like, no, this is quite problematic. We don't.
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't think it would be made now. I don't think it would be made now. Apparently, it was based on a short story, but But I just think I don't think it'd be made now. I think it is more problematic. It didn't break any grounds for LGBT people or anything like that. Some people might even say now people now don't like it when people that aren't that characteristic are playing those roles. So the fact that there's two straight actors in it, you know, some people might not like. I'm not bothered about that. I just don't like it. I just don't think it's a very good film.
Yeah. Holly, number 9.
Oh.
I've got a sad baby, so I'm sorry.
It's
We've talked about Tarantino quite a lot today in our favorite actors, and I do really love a lot of Tarantino films, but it's exactly what Gemma's been saying, that sometimes you're given like a worthy film and a fun film, and you have to choose between them, and you would choose the fun film. And I find that a lot with Tarantino films. Like, I would watch Death Proof or Kill Bill before I rewatch Reservoir Dogs, which is a silly thing to say because Reservoir Dogs is great and much better than those two, but they were just fun, and I would prefer to watch them again. And I think one of his worthy films that I will definitely never watch again and thoroughly did not enjoy was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I didn't understand the plot really. It's another Wikipedia 17 paragraphs plot, because just this happens, then he does this, then there's a car crash, oh mister, he's taken his sock off and this is really upsetting him.
Madness.
Come on, Jamie.
Really upsetting him. I think it's a little bit of industry navel gazing. Like, it's a film about the film industry, and there are real life people in it, and it feels a lot like he made the film for his producer friends who would understand some of the in-jokes, but it actually didn't, it just wasn't entertaining. And
it's about as indulgent as he's been.
Very indulgent,
yeah.
Very indulgent. And I've got a few films on my list which are films about the film industry, because I find them all really, really like smell your own fart.
Yeah,
there's a zeitgeist here, Hall.
There's only a few that have ever done it right, and I would say Ed Wood is probably one that's done it right. The Tim Burton film, if you've ever seen that. But
quite like Hail Caesar.
Yeah, that's all right, because that's the thing of it, tongue in cheek with it, you know.
It was okay, but again, it wasn't one of their top tier films.
Oh God, no! But I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm not too like arguing against you for it.
It was nominated for 10 Oscars.
Yeah.
10.
Like, I would say Brad Pitt was the only deserving one, because
I really like it, but I don't think it's 10 Oscars worthy.
Yeah.
I quite like it. Emily hated it. She wasn't interested at all. What I quite liked was that the bigger plot things, like massively historically, were real side things in the films, so like the Charles Manson stuff. So he was the center of it, and it was going on around him, and I thought that was quite good. I like that, but I don't think it's 10 Oscars worthy. That shocked me. It didn't get an Oscar, surely.
It got Brad Pitt for supporting actor. Did Tarantino win screenplay?
No, I think it was like a production one.
Right. Okay.
Like production design or something.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Okay. Number 8. I'm going to kick us off on my number 8. I don't know if this is going to annoy Ollie, but I know somewhere down the line I have a friend and an ally in this. My number 8 is The Shining.
No.
Because I just don't get The Shining.
Yeah, okay.
I had to watch it.
Stephen King doesn't like The Shining, so fair enough.
I had to watch it at college, and I thought, this is boring. Oh wait, it's going to go around this corner, and it's going to be that thing that I've seen. Oh yeah, look, there are the twins. All right, okay. Right, now the elevator's bleeding. All right, okay. Great, fantastic. Oh, now we're in a maze. All right, okay, we're in a maze. Oh, he's frozen to death. Oh, shame. Like, I just didn't care. I just didn't care at all. And I thought, what's happening? What's going on? Like, the one bit I was looking forward to was the Here's Johnny bit. And it was like, all right, okay, he's done it. But then if you look at it in the context of the film, because usually now when you see it, you just see Jack Nicholson's face in the door, really tight shot, and him going, here's Johnny. But if you actually take it with the context of the film, that shot just doesn't make sense. because you see Shelley Duvall, you go to Jack Nicholson, you see Shelley Duvall, you go to Jack Nicholson. And usually, when you have a reverse shot like that, you're seeing a shot that you've seen before. You're splicing in something that we have seen from an angle before, but never before do they show us the door in the angle where his face pops through it. So it just looks really jarring to all of a sudden see his face is in the door. And because it's that tightly framed, you're not putting it in the context of the door, because again, they've moved the camera around on its axis as well. So it's just jarring. And the whole film is jarring. And I'm not that fussed. My favorite bit of trivia about The Shining is that the guy who plays the butler, what's he called? Scatman Crothers, did the voice for Hong Kong Phooey. Right? Says nothing about the film, but there you go.
My favorite bit of trivia is that years and years and years, decades later, the Razzies undid their Razzie for Worst Actress to Shelley Duvall because of how tortured she was on set
how would you say
by the director.
Yeah. Because that was
she was tormented.
Absolutely tormented. So they took the Razzie back, and I think that was a classy move by the Razzies, the home of class.
Yeah, it's also weird to have done it in the first place because, in the setting that Kubrick gives us, she's absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with her performance.
But I have heard a lot of good stuff about Dr. Sleep, so I might watch Dr. Sleep.
I think the good stuff about The Shining is the impossible geometry of the hotel and it feeling a bit like a dream. But I remember, Stephen King's main criticism is that he doesn't like Jack Nicholson in it. He thinks that Jack Torrance is meant to be quite a sympathetic character, and he's meant to destroy the hotel at the end in an act of sacrifice. He goes mental, but he then snaps to, and he destroys the hotel so that the rest of his family can get out. And you don't have that key likability. And Stephen King was like, "Look, Stanley Kubrick has made fantastic films, and I get objectively what he was going for with The Shining, but I really didn't like it."
It's one of those films that cinephiles or film studies teachers, students, whoever it is, and latch onto, in that the amount of times that I've been in a conference or whatever and someone's walked in with socks that have got the carpet print on them, or someone's got a room 237 keyring and then all of a sudden it's oh, I love The Shine. It's no, you don't, it's rubbish.
The carpet print appears in Toy Story as well, in Sid's house.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being really disappointed when I watched Ready Player One, where it was oh, it's got to be The Shining. I thought, pick a better film. Can we not do a scene about, something else? Let's do a scene about the Lost Boys or something. Why are we doing this? Anyway. Right, that's my number 8. Gemma, what's your number 8?
1 second. My number 8 is any Lord of the Rings. Just not into them. Sorry. Oliver, stop punching your wall, please.
No, I'm going to stop. Georgia is horrified.
I don't like him. I just don't like him. Oh my gosh. You two are absolutely losing your minds. It's hilarious. I do actually recommend that people do watch this on the YouTube version just to watch you. Adam, your face has gone red, mate.
My facial thing was already red, but still.
What's your beef?
That's a steaming hot take, Jam.
I just can't watch them. I just don't like it. It's quite funny actually because when people say, "Why don't you like it?" I say, "I just don't like all this make believe with all these weird made up characters." And then people are like, "You're an RE teacher. You're an RE teacher. Literally, your degree is about
even more fanciful stories,
which a lot of people would say are made up characters." And I'm like, "Yeah, I just can't get into things that are made up characters." So I don't know. There's just no justification for it. I just don't like them. So I'm sorry that I've hurt you and absolutely broken you there. But yeah.
Ironically, I think the strongest reaction, I'm not going to get her on camera for it, but the strongest reaction came from Jo. There was a point where she literally just threw her hands up in the air oh my God, what is she talking about?
Sorry, Georgia. Sorry, everyone that was in Lord of the Rings. Sorry, Gollum. Sorry, Jay. Not JK, I'm not sorry to her. Sorry, JRRRRRR. Sorry, Norse mythology of which it's all based upon. Yeah, because I'm an RE teacher. I get it. but I just don't get it.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. I'm not sorry.
I've got a mate who, if I tell him you said that, and he's Scouse, so he's got the backing for it, he will come looking. Like, he's not going to be
Do
happy.
you not think that everybody in my life has also said all the same things? Like, all of my friends, everybody I know, they're like, how can you not like it? I'm like, no, it's rubbish. And don't even get me started on The Hobbit. That was awful, that film.
No, but
They agree.
We can agree that those were terrible films.
Oh, good. Oh, right. Okay. Because I just thought it was as crap. I didn't realise.
Right, but if you didn't like Lord of the Rings, why did you watch The Hobbit?
I was watching it with somebody that said, let's watch it. So I said, all right then. So I put it on, and within about 3 seconds was biting my nails and playing on my phone.
The most unbelievable fantasy thing that you've mentioned today is that someone could persuade you to do anything that you didn't want to
do. Were you drunk, Gemma?
Yeah. Let's just say maybe I was in a romantic relationship with that person.
Oh, you've got a lot of things to answer for, Mrs. Bolton Hale.
Yeah, I'm no longer in a romantic relationship with them, not because they like The Hobbit, but just because
that would be a bit of a deal breaker, to be fair.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, actually, I don't even remember us watching it all. I think we actually both decided. I think I just decided quicker. But yeah, Lord of the Rings, also Twilights as well. Gosh, they're
crap. We've done Twilights to death. Yeah,
not critically acclaimed.
Not critically acclaimed.
No.
That's the thing with the Lord of the Rings, is that every other filmmaker, every year that a Lord of the Rings was released, every other filmmaker that had something out just went, get it. I'm not even going to turn up to the Oscars because they've got it, and they kind of did. It's not worth the taxi fare, mate. But yeah, no, not for me. Not my thing. Sorry. Everyone's gone mad now. Sorry about that.
I mean, I think the further down our list we get, we're either going to really annoy each other, or it's just going to be one film that we just all agree on that is rubbish. Right. I forgot where we are. Holly, you're number 8.
Another Hollywood, like, love in itself film. Licorice Pizza from last year. I hated it so much. I hated it every second. So if you haven't seen the film, I can't tell you about the plot because it's another plot that isn't a plot. It's just a bunch of stuff that happens to some people. There's like a young guy, he's 15. He like fancy. Oh, Jamie. He's taking his second sock off now.
Jamie.
He fancies this girl who's 25 and he creeps on her for a while, and it's not okay, even though he's a child. And then he opens a waterbed business because all 15-year-olds have enough capital to set up their own business. And then he sells a waterbed to Barbara Streisand. Why? I don't know. Is that supposed to be funny? I don't know. It's a big plot point. It isn't interesting. And then at the end, the 25-year-old girl says she loves him, and that's a crime. And that's the film.
I watched it on the plane coming back from Antigua last year, and it's very like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, isn't it? It's very like that kind of film, where again there's peripheral big things like the Barbara Streisand and her fella. I thought he was really funny in it. Actually, I loved that. I watched it waiting for it to get good and waiting for it to kick in, and then at the end went, oh, it's never going to. I didn't hate it. I finished it. I did watch it. But yeah, I see what you're saying there. But I did watch it.
Like, all the little things that happen are like set dressing. Like, you're right. You're waiting for the plot to start because it's just like setting up where they are. Oh, they're in LA. Oh, they have famous friends. Oh, he's starting a business. Oh, he's met this girl. But then that's the end of the film. Hated it so much.
No.
It's a big
I have beef with
Penn and that, and just going, oh, I thought that was going to be really good, and then it wasn't. Yeah.
No, Paul Thomas Anderson, though, I have beef with Paul Thomas. I didn't like Punch Drunk Love either.
Yeah. Ollie, number 8.
We're going Pixar. We are going Pixar. You can probably guess what it is.
Am I?
Yeah. You know a Pixar film that I'm really not keen on that people seem to love.
Soul comes to mind.
Soul.
Oh, okay.
Soul. Because
You are
this was
harsh on Soul.
nah, it was
Damp
a
squib,
period.
total damp squib. I agree, Ollie.
Yeah, this was a period where Pixar were just like knocking it out of the park leading up to this. You had the likes of like Wall-E, or fine, you had a bit of a dip with like Good Dinosaur, but you had Coco coming into this. You really had a period, and Inside Out, you just had this period where Pixar guaranteed will just make you feel things. And it like hit you in your soul, and ironically, and you just feel like guttural, gut punching emotion. Whether it was the opening scene with Carl and Ellie, whether it's Take Riley to the Moon for Me, or the bit at the end where she just breaks down in front of her parents, and that notion that sadness is important and you can roll with that. And then in Coco, just that connection with music and family and stuff. And then nothing, like Soul was just so nebulous. It was so abstract. It was so out there. There was nothing that you could really grasp except, oh, find your joy in life, find your spark. And like, okay, great. What do you want me to do about that? And I think it's because it was because everything else had these kind of concrete definitions. So the world building in these other films. So Inside Out, we've got a pretty good idea of how the brain works to a point. So you could have, the long-term memory storage back there, and the islands of personality, and the world building could be really relatable and things that you could get your head around. And then with Coco, fine, not everybody knows about the land of the dead from Mexican culture, but they consulted enough people to be able to portray that, and how gorgeous it was portrayed, how well it was portrayed, and just this insight into a world that, unless you know about these practices and this particular belief, you wouldn't have known. Whereas, because no one really has a grasp on like heaven or the afterlife or pre-life, because it couldn't really decide which thing it really wanted to be. Like, it just didn't know its own rules, and it couldn't explain its own rules that well. And you just left being like, okay, Jamie Foxx is a cat now. Okay. And he's so obsessed with playing piano that he can end up in the zone. And that's sometimes a good thing, but it's also sometimes a bad thing. And what? I don't know. Like, it really felt messy. I just remember it ending and being like, was that it? Like, off the back of films like Inside Out or Coco, I was bitterly disappointed. And it started a bit of a dip. Like, Luca was better, but it still wasn't great. I liked Lightyear, but it's not the same kind of film. And then Elemental, which has not long come out, as far as I'm concerned, is a return back to form. Elemental is absolutely fan bloody tastic. It's so good. The world building, fantastic. The way it gets you to feel things, fantastic. The family dynamics in there, it's great. It's really good. But like, yeah, Soul just didn't seem like it knew what it wanted to be, and I was really disappointed by it.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, go on, Gemma. Go on.
We watched Soul on the Christmas day, and it was a lot of Christmas. It was released, and we planned our Christmas day, going, oh, we're going to watch it. We'll do this, we'll do that, and then we'll settle down at this time, and then we're going to watch it. And again, we just went, yeah, absolutely agree. Just very meh. It really.
I do think as well, to be fair to it, if any other animated studio put it out, if it was a DreamWorks film, I'd probably a bit less harsh on it. But it is Pixar. At the end of the day, Pixar have made a name for themselves for just fairly repeatedly knocking it out of the park. So when they have even if they have something which is like mid, it'll probably come across as really meh. I get that it's very pretty. I get that the animation standards haven't dropped. It still looks incredible. I get that the voice performances are all pretty damn good. But Pixar is ultimately there to make me feel things that I'm not necessarily comfortable with feeling. And the only thing I felt in this film was confusion. And it's just like,
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it definitely loses its way in parts because I think it tries to do more than what it probably set out to be, or what people probably expected of it. But yeah, I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. You know?
I feel like I should have related with it, but especially as like someone who plays musical instruments and does stuff on stage, I'd like to think I should have been able to relate to that kind of getting in the zone mentality, whatever.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Okay.
And Joe's just pathetic. Like he's still like he's like 40 odd years old and he's still like he's having to have that conversation with his mom. I don't know.
Yeah. Number 7, Gemma.
Moonlight.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Holly spoke about it earlier and said slow, and I think that's just the best way to describe it. Slow. It went off in this house. Both turned it off. I was talking to my partner last night and just sort of going through my list. And when I got to Moonlight, the response was, "Oh yeah, we turned it off." And I went, "Yeah, we turned it off." Yeah. Just slow. Again, I think just try to be that little bit edgy. Oh, they're gay, but they're black, and that's going to be difficult because of the kind of world that they're from, and just trying to push that kind of edginess with it, with a very slow plot line. It was a massive. It won the Oscar. Don't know if that was a political choice. Don't know. I wish we could get away from the politics in Oscars, really.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. But to me, Moonlight just left me absolutely cold, and we turned it off. Didn't like it at all.
I mean, I remember watching it and not really liking it, but sort of going, all right, I can see why people like this. But
I see what they're trying to do. I see every part of that. But ultimately, when I'm sat there and I'm watching a film, I'm saying, entertain me.
Yeah.
It didn't. I just thought, this is hard work. It's a bit boring.
Yeah.
It was Moonlight, Holly. Welcome back. There we go.
I've got the sound on.
Are you good for a smidge, or do you wanna?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. We've played with puppets, so he's feeling a bit better.
Okay. I know what your next one is. So I wanted to just give you the benefit of the doubt of either going now or
is it gonna trigger me, Adam, or no?
Yeah.
I think this is probably my most controversial one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Okay, so I really enjoy the first one, which is not the usual take.
What?
I just think, like, I talk about tropes a lot that I hate, and that's totally on me. It's not on the script writers and the film makers. I just don't like it. I think Sarah Connor is a terrible mum.
I mean, yeah.
And I can't get past the fact that the film wants us to forgive her and understand why she is a terrible mum in the way that she is, because I don't I understand that completely unrealistic expectations are heaped on women, and completely unacceptable expectations are heaped on mothers as well to be perfect. So it's a bit harsh of me to bring my criticism of this film down to how I don't like the way this one woman parents, but she's abusive to her son. She is a very, very bad person, but we're supposed to really love this girl boss change that has happened in her character between the first one and the second one, and I don't like it. I can't see that first character would have become the second character. I can see that she would have become strong. I could have seen that she would have trained for what was coming next. I could see her becoming a badass, but I can't see her becoming an asshole. And that's what she. I didn't like it, so I didn't like when she was on screen. The T-1000 is incredible, and the actor who plays the T-1000 is incredible.
Robert Patrick.
So menacing, so wonderful. I wanted him on screen every minute, and every minute he wasn't on the screen, I was bored. I was so bored. I did not like Arnold Schwarzenegger's portrayal of the Terminator as a more benevolent character. I liked him as the bad guy in the first one. I didn't like his performance. Yes, he can reload a shotgun one-handed whilst on a motorbike. That was the highlight for me. Don't like it. I felt no emotion in it. When he died at the end, didn't care. I was more emotional when the T-1000 died because he was a great character. Bye.
That's destroyed me.
Argue with my baby instead.
Jamie, your mum
what
has
happened?
steaming hot takes, lad. Oh my god, it's my third favourite film of all time.
It was
literally it's Empire Strikes Back, Jurassic Park, Terminator 2.
What have you not seen Despicable Me?
Shut off.
When Holly sent me a list before, I was just scrolling down, and that was the one where I thought, "Oh no."
I didn't know that. I'm very sorry.
That's steaming hot. Like, she's been locked in an asylum and like sexually abused by that one creepy orderly with glasses. She's gonna be a bit broken.
So a broken character I don't think a broken character would act the way that she did either. Or the film needs to react differently to her because she's now breaking her son.
Yeah, but that is how the cycle of abuse will often work. That you yourself?
But it's not given to us as a cycle of abuse. That would be a different film if we were watching a film about a cycle of abuse happening. It's a fun action film with a badass mum in it, and I just think she's handled badly.
Ironically, this would have caused issues as well, because if I had been on the International Women's Day, like, this would have been my number 2 performance. Like, unequivocally, it really would have been. This would have
I'd have kept my mouth shut because I knew
this really would have been my number 2. Like, the only thing that tops this for me is Ellen Ripley in Aliens. But
I hate it.
Ollie, you're number 7. If you would like to recover.
God. Well, no one's going to get... I think the closest to someone getting offended is going to be you, but I think you're going to get it.
To this one?
Encanto.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Pretty much the same, because Gemma did what I did with Soul, watching it Christmas Day, getting all excited for it, thinking, yeah, let's do this. Let's dedicate our time to this. And Encanto, I believe, came out on the 23rd of December that year. I can't remember what year it was, but it came out on the 23rd. And me and Georgia were like, yeah, we'll watch it. We really enjoyed Frozen. We really enjoyed Tangled. We really enjoyed Moana. We'll watch Encanto. It'll be really good. And again, just really didn't do anything for me. Like, I can hold my hands up and say that there is an element of me. Gemma's gonna roll her eyes because it's like the admittance of edgelordiness. Like, I can be contrarian. I really can. And I do think, yes, I know, right? I was just so put off by every single TikTok being, we don't talk about Bruno. It's like that one bit where they're just walking in the background. Oh, yeah, like that bit. I heard it so many times. I had to be beaten over that. Like, there was just so many people like, oh my God, surface pressure's about me. And it's a shame because I think surface pressure is objective. Like, I bash on Lin-Manuel Miranda a lot. And I think it's because people, I don't think he does, but I think people think he's a lot cleverer than I think he is. But I will give him credit where it's due. Surface pressure's clever. The way the lyrics and the way they're put into a rhythm, they are clever. But the amount of hype I had to hear about surface pressure, when it doesn't hold a candle, I'm sorry, it doesn't come close to something like Let It Go. It doesn't come close to half the songs he did in Moana. It doesn't come close to Into the Unknown from Frozen 2. It's just not as good. It really isn't. And again, like, Holly weirdly enough, it kind of links in with Holly. I just cannot forgive that grandmother. I really cannot forgive that grandmother. She's horrible. Like, we're meant to see where she's come from. Her son felt so ostracized that he spent several years living in the walls of her house with rats.
Yeah.
Because she is so, you want to talk about like horrific abuse from it. Like, Sarah Connor is neglectful and she is a bit nasty and sharp with John. And yeah, fine. She's horrible. The way, like, and you can give that argument of, oh, the house was a gift to us. My husband died and I saw that trauma and all that. But I hate the kind of cruel God message as well. You know, like in Signs, where he regains his faith because, you know, he lost his faith after his wife died, but he regains it again because of the 2 random words she said when she was pinned to a tree. It's like, well, you already had the faith, so did you need to kill his wife to get him to regain his faith in the first place? Like, did you need to put Mirabelle through what, 15, 16 years of just psychological torture where she thinks she's not good enough? She thinks she's not worthy to be part of the family because she's not been given the power or whatever. She's had to go through all of that just so that abusive grandma can learn a lesson. Get stuffed. Just, ew.
I had a similar reaction to Bruno as I did with City of Stars.
Yeah.
In that, like, everyone's talking about this song must be amazing, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh, okay, is that it?
I do really, I think it's a really good end of act. If you're doing it as like a musical, imagine it on stage. I think it's a fantastic end of Act 1 song. I love it at the end where they all come together singing their individual bits. And the theme throughout the song, you're like, that bit's really good. I really like that bit. But
the Family Madrigal song does a great job at the beginning for the exposition of
really good
you where everybody is and all that kind of stuff. But then, like, you know, I'm living in the sort of Encanto bubble in that Ruby really likes it. She's got the Mirabelle costume, she's got the Isabella costume, she's got the doll, she's got all that kind of stuff.
It just really felt like as well, okay, we're going to go to this family member and this is their song. Okay, cool. Now we're going to go to this family member and this is their song. Okay, cool. And now we're going to go to this family member. Yeah. It's just, I
think it's that thing of like, right now it's easy for kids to latch onto something that is small, like a song or like a thing or like whatever. But then the bigger thing that it comes from is never as good as the smaller thing that people latch onto. So like the film itself is nowhere near as good as some of the songs that come out of it.
Yeah. I just think as well, like Strange World got a lot of, it really got kind of slammed.
Yeah.
By a critic, and I would say Strange World is better than this. I really would. Strange World had an intriguing story. The characters were interesting. I saw the twist coming a mile off, but I just noticed, oh, they're acting a lot like, you know, spoilers if you haven't seen Strange World, I guess. But those things that chase them, I'm like, oh, they're a bit like white blood cells. So I wonder if that's what we're getting at. And sure, that's exactly what we were getting at. But just because you can see a twist coming in a kid's film, especially, doesn't mean it's bad. It means they've laid down the groundwork for it really well. And yeah, like Strange World got a lot of flack, and yeah, I definitely think it's better than Encanto. But Encanto seems to be getting absolute praise left, right, and center.
It's not just as well that the grandma is cruel, and she's awful. She's really awful. But the film is cruel to Mirabelle as well. I really just. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on this one. Yeah. Good music, bad film.
Yeah.
And even the music, like the music's good, but again, because I feel like people hear Lin-Manuel Miranda, Adam's gonna be sick of this by this point. People hear Lin-Manuel Miranda and just be like, this is the best soundtrack.
No, like, because it's true, they do that, you know, in that, like, the only reason why the In the Heights film got off the ground is because of Hamilton. The only reason why you know, he got any sort of traction behind the songs that he did for Moana is because of what he did with Hamilton. It's like, but then, bless him, he's trying to do something slightly different with everything that he does. Like, the whole thing with Vivo, like, Ruby likes Vivo, but Vivo is a film that not many people talk about because it landed on Netflix. I think it's a Sony animation, but because he's done the songs for it, they built it off that, or they tried to sell it off that. And, yeah. Anyway. Right, my number 7, the most recent one on my list, The Banshees of Inisherin.
Okay.
Now, this came out, I want to say 2022. Now, I went to the cinema to watch this, and I mentioned in the last podcast with with the actors one, when we were talking about Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand, that I love Three Billboards Outside of Missouri. I think it's fantastic. And to say that I was looking forward to see what Martin McDonagh did next was an understatement. But then when it ended up being this, I was so bitterly disappointed by it. If you're unaware, it's basically, Wikipedia refers to it as a black tragicomedy film. Set on a remote fictional island off the west coast of Ireland in the 1920s, and it stars Colin Farrell and Brandon Gleeson as two lifelong friends who are at an impasse when one of them abruptly ends a relationship. So basically, it's Colin Farrell, very well acted, very well written. It's Brendan Gleeson, very well acted, again, very well written. But basically, the film boils down to, and I think I was on board with it for about 15 minutes, and I laughed a little bit at the beginning, and then all of a sudden just went away. So Colin Farrell's in this pub, and he says, "Oh, have you seen him?" And then someone goes, "No, I heard you were rowing." And they go, "Well, why are we rowing? What are we rowing about?" And then Brendan Gleeson shows up, and Colin Farrell says, "Are we rowing? I didn't know we were rowing." And then basically, it's Brendan Gleeson's character who's just decided one day that he can't be bothered with Colin Farrell's character. That's the film. That's it. And then you get to the point where Colin Farrell's like, "Well, I want to talk to you." So Brandon Gleeson says, "Well, if you can continue to talk to me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop one of my fingers off and I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to throw it at your door in the morning." And that's what he does. He starts chopping his fingers off and just chucking them at the front door. And I'm sort of sat there going, are we going somewhere with this? Like, what's happening next? Like, where's the main... I remember saying this to Henry. You will all know Henry. He came in for work experience recently. And I said to him, Nicklin. Yeah. I said to him, I said, "Where was the conflict?" He said, "The conflict is that they don't like each other anymore." I said, "No, one of them's decided that he doesn't like the other one. The other one's left in the dark. He ain't got a clue what's happening." And I just thought this is one of the most boring things that I've had to sit through. It was so tedious. But again, I'm too stubborn to walk out. So me and the one other person who was in that cinema screen, like, she made it even more awkward because on the way out, she said bye to me. Not like we'd had a conversation at any point. She just walked past her and "See ya." I was like, "All right, okay." Yeah. And I just thought, what is this absolute nonsense and drivel?
So when you got to the end, did you get it?
No, no.
Right. I was going to say, because what you've just said then, I was just thinking, oh, so you didn't get it. You didn't get it then, because you were saying it was the needless violence, why they're doing it. At the very end, they're looking over and they can see the fighting from the war. And the whole analogy is the fact that it's actually people that should be friends and allies needlessly hurting one another, almost self-hurting each other, because that's what Brandon Gleeson's doing, just for a pointless fight, which is what that war essentially was. So it's about the pain inflicted on yourself.
It's
just
another
because of
powerful narrative.
There's definitely
the narrative
a bigger kind of analogy there. And so I would say about halfway through the film, I got it, and I was like, "This is what the point they're making is." And then when they have the end scene where they can see the fighting, I was like, "Yeah, I get it."
That doesn't make me like it anymore.
But it is slow.
No, that doesn't.
No, not getting it doesn't mean, because if you didn't like it, you didn't like it.
I think the problem is as well, like, whatever reason they've given you for why they've fallen out or why he'd fallen out with him in the first place, it's not going to be enough. Like, they've
it's so perfunctory of like, we're just gonna. I've just decided that I'm bored of you. I want to spend my time living, and it's like, you've got nothing else to do on this bleeding island. You may as well talk to him.
And it also,
I think that is about, again, everybody forgot why they'd fallen out. When you look at things like some of the wars that we fought in the early part of the 20th century, some people actually forgot what the cause of the war was and why people had fallen out. And people, they all knew who fought, but actually you will get people say, why were they fighting? And some people go, actually, I can't even remember. Particularly the First World War, some people were just like, actually, I can't even remember what it was all about. So again, I think that is in that plot, but that's fine. You didn't like it.
It's so very, ask me what it means. Ask me what it means.
Yeah.
Someone told me it was like, it's about the war, but also about like fragile masculinity and this idea that people want their lives to matter. So Brendan Gleeson's character is like, I want to do something, like I want to have a legacy. I want to do something, and he sacrifices, you know, actual connection with people in order to put something interesting into the world before he dies, and how like being obsessed with legacy means that you don't live in the moment and you hurt other people. But again, I had to look that up afterwards, and it was begrudgingly because I just sat through that film.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to do homework to enjoy a film.
No, like there's my number one when we get to it later. After I saw it and said, "Well, that was a load of rubbish," someone said, "Oh no, it's not. It's a metaphor for." And then I'll tell you later what he said it was a metaphor for. But at the end of the day, I don't want to go and watch a film, however long it is, whether it's, you know, an hour and a half or 3 hours, just for someone to be like, well, it's a metaphor for this, so that's why you should like it. Stuff
Totally.
it.
Like I said, if it's not entertaining you, then it doesn't work.
Nah.
My number one is all like people say, oh, well, if you just don't get it, then you just don't get it. And I can absolutely assure you, I do get it. But yeah, totally. It just didn't entertain me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, let's do our sixes. I'll flip things around just a little bit to give Holly a bit of time. Ollie, do your six.
Oh no, this is another grenade.
Oh no.
I don't know if I'm gonna have Holly on side this time either. Forrest Gump.
Shut up, man. What Forrest Gump?
You've got me on side.
Oh, stop talking.
I've not seen it, so I have no.
And you've not seen it. Who am I even doing a podcast with here? Two people that don't like Forrest Gump, and one person that hasn't seen it. Do you know what? The most intelligent person
time with me, though,
now is Jamie, and he's won. Okay, hi Jamie. What do you want to say? Google Gaga, more intelligent.
Let's be real. The reason this film got the kudos it did, especially at like Academy Award level, is because they seamlessly, oh yeah, you really can't tell, they blended in footage of Forrest Gump with JFK at that's what that people like about it.
It isn't.
That's what they love about it.
Incorrect. Overruled.
That's what they love about it.
No, it isn't.
That's why it did as well.
I love it, and that's not what I love about it. End of conversation.
Right. You just love Tom Hanks, and fine. I love Tom Hanks.
It's a great film. Bubba, brilliant.
It's boring. It's so boring. Like it just follows this man with special needs around the country, and he gets into hijinks. That's it.
That premise sounds fantastic, though.
Like, don't get me wrong. Unequivocally, I love Lieutenant Dan. He's an absolute madman. I love it when he's like up on the boat screaming into the storm. He's great. I love Lieutenant Dan because I love Gary Sinise. But, and again, this is the last one of, I get why people love this. I know I'm kind of doing it just to kind of, annoy Gemma. I do get why people love this. I have a go at it. I do get why people love Forrest Gump. There is a classic story in there. It is iconic. Whether or not I think it's good, it is iconic. I can't argue that. But it really didn't move me. Like, I think people are so... George has just messaged me. I was just about to text you saying justice for Lieutenant Dan. But
I love it so much that you're mentioning Lieutenant Dan because that's our word for ice cream in this house. So obviously all the way through his time in hospital, every time that he's just eating this ice cream, he's like, Lieutenant Dan, ice cream, and he keeps offering Lieutenant Dan this ice cream though he doesn't want it. That's actually our name for ice cream in this house. So if we're on a holiday or just down by the freezer and one wants the ice cream or is suggesting it, we just go, Lieutenant Dan, and we're like, yeah, I want it. We even used to call the ice cream man that used to come round when we heard his tune, we'd go, Lieutenant Dan, ice cream. That's how iconic that film is in this house. It's our word for ice cream.
This is, like I said, it's the last one of the films that I've got where it's like I do get why people love it. It really didn't. I think people would be quite quick to put this as like Tom Hanks's best film as an example. I really don't think it is. I think there's so many films like kind of heads and tails above this. Captain Phillips is better. Saving Private Ryan is better. Toy Story I'd have above this as well. There's just so many. Castaway as well. There's just so many Tom Hanks films I think are far and away are better than this. And like, I can't shake the vibe. Maybe this is just me being a bit nitpicky. I can't shake the vibe that Jenny is maybe taking advantage of a mentally handicapped man. I cannot escape that vibe. Like, Forrest has learning difficulties in this film. And yeah, sure, Jenny is a victim of abuse, but she doesn't half take advantage of him and his pure soul. And it's a bit of a bad, it leaves a bit of a bad taste. I don't know. And that probably wouldn't bother me as much if I liked the film. I'm willing to accept that, but yeah, like the only thing I really love, like I didn't feel anything when Bubba died, and that's apparently meant to be a really sad moment. I didn't really feel anything when Forrest's mum died, and that should really be a sad moment. I did enjoy Forrest's mum earning Forrest a place at the school. That's quite a nice, only adults will get this moment. I do appreciate that. But yeah, he was there. He was there at the protests against the KKK. He met Nixon. He was at the Watergate Hotel. Ooh, what's a story? I don't care. I just don't care.
In the same way, Gemma, that you just don't like fantasy, it's just not your thing. You're not into it. I'm the exact same with like the sweeping American epic. Don't like it. Not my thing. Forrest Gump, like Benjamin Button.
Yeah,
just quite a lot of films that span history and
all
give us
20 years
politics
of American history.
There's something about them, just like you said, leave me cold. And Forrest Gump is one of those. I don't hate it. It's not on my list, but I just like.
But I do get why people like it. From here on in, nah. You don't have that defense anymore. If you do like these films, I frankly judge you.
Holly, number 6.
I don't need to talk about it. Adam's already talked about it. The Shining. Don't get The Shining. Don't find it scary. Don't get the plot. What's Red Rum? Don't know. Don't care.
Shining. And Stanley Kubrick is a horrible person.
Yeah. Right, my number 6, 2015, The Big Short. For a film that has Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, and Brad Pitt in it, like, what's going on? What's happening? Right? And I'll tell you what's happening. Someone saw Wolf of Wall Street and went, "Oh, I know. There was something else that happened around about with the stock markets and the Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. There was a housing crisis. Let's make a film about the housing crisis." And then what they've done is they've written a script that is so hoi polloi, full of jargon, full of all that nonsense, that they then go, actually, I think people who are going to go and watch this film are pretty thick. So are they going to be able to understand it? Probably not. Well, what are we going to do about it? I know. We're going to stick Margot Robbie in a bath, so that every time we say something that is a little bit elevated, probably above the station of all these people watching, she can appear in a bath and go, right, basically, let me tell you what's going on. Or every now and again, Ryan Gosling can look at the camera and go, basically, this is what's happening. And then every now and again, for whatever reason, Christian Bale can play the drums. Like, it was rubbish, but then I think the thing that irks me the most about it is not the sort of insult to the audience, but it's the sort of people who then say, "Oh, but it's a fantastic film. Did you not think it was so smart?" No, you think it's smart because you don't get it. And you think that because you don't get it and because it's making you think that actually that means it's a good film. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And it was just a massive disservice to all of the people in it, because there's some really good people in here. And, realistically, it should have been good. It was nominated for Best Picture, Director, Supporting Actor, and Film Editing, and it won for Adapted Screenplay. Like, why? Because you confused everybody. So they just thought, oh, it must be smart. Let's give it an Oscar. Nah, don't have the time for it. Do not have the time for it. Gemma, number 6.
My number 6 is The Passion of the Christ. Anyone seen it?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was an RE film.
Well, yeah, this is it. So it was just one that everybody that's, an RE teacher was all just like, oh, yes, we're just going to go and have to see it. So obviously with the circles that I was running in at the time, it was all like, we should all just like go and see it together and stuff. And I think it was just one of those films that it's not terrible, but everybody raved about it. And I think it was just because of some things that they did in the film that, you know, was supposed to be seen as quite edgy, in terms of you know, using Aramaic as the dialogue and things like that, in terms of the brutality when you see the crucifixion and all the torture, which is quite realistic. But you'd never seen that before. It was all very saccharine when you see like Jesus being crucified. So you know, people just sort of raved and raved and raved about it. And then it was all like, oh, it's going to be banned and things because of people's responses to it, which of course banning something just makes it even more
They definitely put that out. Because I don't think anywhere banned it really, other than like proper Bible bashing places in America. I can't see it being banned.
Yeah, I think those were the kind of the places that were saying that they were going to ban it and things like that. So yeah, it was just something that people just like bleed in their hearts about. And you know, the RE teachers were like, oh, you know, we're just going to plan this lesson around this film and use this and use that. And for me, I was a bit like, yeah, it's very slow. I think it's very self-indulgent, very, very self-indulgent, you know, very, very pleased with itself. Oh, look, we used Aramaic. It's a dead language. It's just a spoken language. And we got him to learn it. And just all these different things, which ultimately, you know, the imagery of the devil and things like that, it's supposed to be really powerful. But in the end, I just think it was a bit of a, yeah. Didn't
Jim Caviezel get literally struck by lightning on the set of that film as well?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Even God was like, Mel, stop it.
Well, there's some people say it was, you know, a bit anti-Semitic because obviously Gibsons have expressed some anti-Semitic views at times. But I believe Mr. Gibson Senior is a bit of a Holocaust denier and stuff. So some people then say it's maybe was it a vehicle for some anti-Semitism and things. Although I do think perhaps the Romans were put across as a you know, particularly the bad guys, they were the ones that were particularly violent in it. But yeah, I just thought it was a film that was just something that everybody went mental about at the time. Long time ago now, it's like 20 years ago.
I think it was just because of the subject. Like, you probably haven't had anything that horrific to do with Catholicism since like The Exorcist, because that caused a massive stir as well. And just the idea of, oh, something, you know, controversial and it's got the church involved, like that was the stir around it, wasn't it?
Yeah, then, I don't know whether it was much, because there isn't much about the church, and maybe my understanding as an RE teacher of what you're calling the church is different, because it was pre the church. It was about Jesus and his crucifixion. So I think the thing that people were saying about it was the reality of it, the kind of they weren't sanitizing it. You know, all films before now had made it very, you know, sort of gentle, and Jesus was meek and mild, but then it was just this absolute savagery.
You see him get whipped. You see the crown of thorns go on and he bleeds.
Yeah, and all these Christians were going, it really helped me to understand his suffering and stuff. But then when you're not a Christian yourself, but you just go to university with a lot of them,
it's just torture porn, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, and they're just coming out going, oh, it's just really made me understand what Jesus did for us.
The bit that got me was when they dislocated his arm so they could nail him on. That was like, an agonizing number of days. It took him days to die, and it's a horrible way to die.
But I can't really see.
Yeah. Do you need an entire film to get that message across?
Yeah, it was a bit much. So that's it. Passion of the Christ.
Nice. Right. That's it for this part. We are going to be back with part 2 very soon. You know, the grenades have been thrown already. Let's see what happens when we get to our top 5s.
I've got at least 2 more.
Okay. Stay safe, look after each other, and we'll see you in part 2.